for seniors. But these challenges are just going to keep growing. Minister Duclos says our population will continue to age, with the peak pressures for the government being felt around the year 2030. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
I'm Stuart McGinn, 1310 News. For news anytime, follow up online at 1310news.com.
The Power Lunch with Mark Sutcliffe is brought to you by what? Many opinions.
I don't think they know what they're doing.
All it does is give the government more power.
One voice. Welcome to the Power Lunch on Ottawa Today with Mark Sutcliffe. It's time to bite into the big topics of the day on 1310 News.
We welcome back to the Power Lunch today Sherilyn Starkey, president of Thornley Fallis, and Matt Scoff, who's the president of the Ottawa Police Association. Welcome to both of you.
Hi there.
How's it going? Thanks for having us on.
It's great to have you back. And before we go too far into kind of the topics of the day, Matt Scoff, I wanted to get your reaction to the story that the OPP have now been asked to investigate senior police employees after lawyer Michael Edelson alleged fraud and evidence manipulation during an SIU investigation. What's your reaction to that?
Well, obviously it's going to be, these are serious allegations, and it's going to be something very difficult for the membership to go through. We've had a lot of very high-profile cases come in Ottawa recently, and even in the past couple of years. And what's very frustrating right now is this appearance of a double standard in regards to suspensions and either administrative moves that have not been conducted at this point, and it's a lot of the conversation that's being directed towards the police association.
When you say double standard, what specifically are you pointing to?
Well, in similar scenarios and much less serious allegations, we've had officers in the OPA ranks, so below staff sergeant and below, either suspended or administratively moved. And what we've seen in the senior officer rank is a different rationale, or the convenience of saying, well, we have different information that does not merit suspension, but yet the exact same or very similar accusations made either through a public complaint or even pre-investigation stage, where we've seen suspensions again at the lower rank as opposed to what we're seeing at the senior officer rank.
And of course, this is an example of senior officers who are not your members. They're more on the management side rather than the rank and file side. Is that fair to say?
That's absolutely correct, yes. And that's, again, where the membership are coming to us and expressing that frustration, because a lot of them have their own experience where they've been put in a position where they've been suspended or moved, and they're quite aware of the accusations leveled against them. And it's not a decision or a discussion even around, or even a challenge on the authority. The authority is there. There's no debate about that. The Police Services Act is very clear that the chief has his authority. It's more on the perception of a double standard, or even the conflict that may be resulting from this.
So they look at a situation like this and wonder, okay, the OPP is being brought in to investigate, but why aren't these officers being suspended if, in its different circumstance, they see examples of officers being suspended while they're being investigated?
That's exactly it. They have no doubt in their mind that if these were officers at the OPA rank, that they would be suspended right now.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for your comments on that. Let's get to our topics of the day. And I wanted to ask you both, do you work downtown, Matt?
I certainly do, yes.
Do you work out of the police headquarters?
Just down the road. We're right downtown, yeah.
And, of course, Sherilyn, you work downtown.
That's right at the corner of Queen and Metcalfe.
Queen and Metcalfe. So were you evacuated yesterday?
Oh, yeah, we were evacuated yesterday.
Okay.
And you could certainly smell the gas in the air. I was certainly glad there was no smokers in my environment. But I have to say that the evacuation was handled well. I kind of added an extra 20 minutes onto my bus commute because the buses were routed around the area. But everybody was calm and the service went well, and I think that they got people out of the way very, very quickly.
But do you feel like downtown Ottawa? I don't go there as often as I used to because the radio station's out here in the South End. But I do still get to downtown Ottawa a couple of times a week, and I just feel, you really feel the construction and the road closures and the lane closures and the pressure of all of that. So,
I'm sorry, Sherilyn. I know
go
this
ahead.
is definitely, you're much more impacted. I'm closer to the Queensway, so I was watching the rush hour traffic from my office. I can honestly tell you, like even in just not my personal life, but professional life, I do avoid the core during rush hour. Like if I have an interview down at CTV or somewhere else in the core, even at CBC, it's impossible to get to. Coming out to this office is a relief for me because I'm getting away from the traffic. So both personally and professionally, I do everything to avoid that area. Leading into the topic around what I'm hopeful that light rail will produce will be an easing of this congestion, and I'm hopeful to see that too. Like especially after LeBreton's developed, and I think this is something that we're going to see hopefully provide the new culture change from our society of being a commuting city to hopefully one of light rail and public transit.
Yeah, even if the same number of people take light rail as public transit, we've effectively added 2 lanes to the downtown core underneath the downtown core where those people can now travel, and it frees up space on the surface. So even that is a net gain. But do you have a sense that they're rushing the light rail construction to meet this deadline that they set of 2018, which also coincidentally happens to be an election year? So there's potential political damage if they don't meet the deadline?
So, well, I'm not really in a position to know if they're rushing it or not, but certainly the narrative that's out there in the media and in social media is that, there's lots of talk about accidents and is it safe? And then they've had a few quite public things happen. The gas leak yesterday, there was a crane that toppled last week. So they've come out very quickly and strongly to reassure the public that there is a safe environment and that they have a great safety record, and that's exactly what they should be doing. But I would suggest that maybe a little bit more proactive communication instead of being caught on their back foot and having to react. Being proactive about keeping us up to date with where we are. Are we hitting milestones? Have we solved new challenges? Are we on track to make our deadline? We're not hearing any information about that, and that's probably putting them on their back foots.
I think Sean McKenney, the president of ODLC, I think his comments are something that we should be putting a lot of weight behind. When you start seeing health and safety concerns flagged, and those are the reported ones, which again, in an environment that large of that much construction, there's probably a lot not reported. And I can even in my own environment of 2,000 officers, we're seeing that a lot is not reported.
Right.
I think if you are starting to see comments coming from people who are in the profession of safety, Sean being one of them, I think that is a flag that if we're seeing these things become public, then the question does lead to, is this in a hurry for a legacy project? Is this in a hurry for a party? And in which case that should not be the case. I mean, clearly this is essential. This is the biggest project since, I think his worship mentioned this. This is the biggest project since the Ottawa Canal.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then let's do the proper steps and proper diligence.
But is it realistic to expect that, look, even if you do everything right, on a project of this scale, there are going to be a few accidents and incidents? That's just inevitable. It's a huge project.
I totally agree with that. There will be accidents. And I think I go back to it. I don't think, again, someone like Mr. McKenney would be making comments in regards to something of this magnitude if it wasn't going outside of what would be considered a norm.
Right.
Yeah.
Don Meredith, should he be permanently expelled from the Senate?
Right. Well, again, I'm not in a position to say whether he, should we throw him out or keep him. But one thing I will comment on is that we are in a post-truth world right now, and people don't are fed up with it. And they're fed up with the narratives around emotions and feelings instead of hard facts. And more people are calling on their politicians and business leaders and their employers and their celebrities to be more ethical in their behavior. Also, the brands that they support. People are starting to value this more. And if the Senate, wants to survive and continue, they need to prove that it's that they are an ethical organization and that ethics are at the center of everything that they do. And it does seem like they've taken a very thorough look at the situation, and they've put together this report, and that is their assertion that he needs to go.
Yeah, and I think what you're bringing up is this is not just about Don Meredith, it's also about the Senate, right?
Yes, that's right.
Ultimately.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. This is a new, I'll say new, it's probably around for 10 years of social media. We're looking at an era of evolving from what would have been swept under the rug to completely exposed. Expectations have changed, and I totally agree with that. We have much higher expectations given the scrutiny. Committee was struck, an investigation was conducted. Mm-hmm. The process has merited itself out. At the beginning of this, I would have said, let's wait to see what the process evolves to, and they've done their committee work, and they're suggesting expulsion, and I totally agree with that.
Did you see what Hillary Clinton had to say yesterday about she takes personal responsibility for the loss, but at the same time she also does invoke James Comey, the FBI director, who revealed late in the campaign with about 10 days to go that he was investigating once again Hillary Clinton's emails. So there's still obviously some bitterness there, and she obviously has a lot of comments about Donald Trump's foreign policy and how he's conducting himself as president. Do you think that's all valid, or does it come across as kind of sour grapes from the person who didn't win?
It does come across as sour grapes, and she's certainly his expression I picked up in England is setting the cat amongst the pigeons with what she's doing. But it's really, I suspect, more about where Hillary's life is now and her role in her post-political life, and you know. She's starting a new career as a keynote speaker. She's probably trying to pin down a lucrative book deal, and getting international headlines for saying things that are provocative is going to help her in that stead. So she said something really provocative. She knew that it was going to ruffle feathers. It worked. She's got massive media coverage, and she's back in the spotlight, which is right where she wants to be.
I have no doubt that these... the Jim Comey letter, the Russian accusation of Russian WikiLeaks. Given the large demographic of undecided voters, I had no doubt that swayed voters. Having said that, I do find it this entire discussion around the election. If we go back during the campaign, the thought, if we go back 20 years ago, to suggest that Russia was allied with a candidate and that helped the candidate, I find it funny in today's era, where that actually appears to have in some way helped our candidate, or the concept of it, that if, I think we're giving the current president a lot of credit to think that, well, I'm going to get Russia on my side and they're going to support me, and that's going to actually put me over the edge. If that discussion was had during the Reagan era, it would have been the end of political careers if you were tied to Russia. But now, for some reason, we've evolved to an era where the thought that Russia might be assisting a candidate somehow improved their candidacy, and I think that's giving Mr. Trump a lot of credit. Having said that, we go back to it. If I think assuming who's involved in it, I do ultimately I do think it assisted that his campaign versus hers.
Right. I think the argument Trump supporters would make is that if there was any Russian interference, Trump didn't know about it. He didn't organize it. He didn't line it up. He didn't have a conversation with Vladimir Putin saying, help me win this election. That it was Putin deciding on his own that he'd rather have Trump in the White House than Clinton. He hates the Clintons. Therefore, he's going to spread false news about the Clintons, or hack into emails, that kind of thing, release documents, whatever it takes to beat Hillary Clinton.
If that had come out just only after the election, I would be okay with that argument. Yeah. But this conversation was occurring during the campaign.
Yeah.
And that's where I found that, not quite ironic, but I found it very interesting from a sociological perspective to see that shift. If this conversation was occurring even 10, 15 years ago, this would have been the end of a candidate having any ties to Russia.
I think this all points, though, to the unique aspect of Hillary Clinton as the candidate in this race, and all the baggage she had, and how many Americans find her to be an unlikable figure for whatever reason, that normal circumstances do not apply. So when she points to all this other stuff, I still say if the Democrats had a different candidate, then maybe it's a different outcome. And frankly, if the Republicans had a different candidate, then it's probably a slam dunk for the Republicans to win this race. The fact that it was so close is a comment on the kind of poor quality of who both parties put forward in this election.
And it speaks to the trust that people have in their politicians, in the post-truth era. Again, they didn't trust Hillary coming in. Because of her husband's presidency, there was a lot of issues around trust, and she failed to gain trust from those who were on the fence.
All right, we have to take a quick break. We will come back with our multiple choice questions on the Power Lunch on 1310 News.
There's always more to the story. Ottawa Today with Mark Sutcliffe. We'll be right back on 1310 News and Rogers TV.
Your Ottawa Senators are in the playoffs as their quest for the Stanley Cup continues. OT the Hockey Show is along for the ride. We'll take you to the rink and to the locker room with the latest on your Ottawa Senators.
Ottawa Fury Think it's okay to drive high? Think again. Drug-impaired driving is as illegal as drunk driving, and in Ontario, the penalties are the same. If police suspect you're driving under the influence of drugs of any kind, or a combination of drugs and alcohol, and you fail a roadside test, your license will be suspended immediately for up to 30 days. You'll pay a penalty of $198. And you can be charged with a criminal offense of impaired driving, the same as alcohol. Driving high is never okay.
Hi, I'm Dylan Black from Daytime Ottawa, and here's what's happening. As part of Canada's 150th anniversary, the Canada Science and Technology Museums Corporation Foundation is celebrating the important contributions of Canada's youth, past, present, and future, on May 17th at the National Science and Innovation Gala. Watson's Mill in Manotick kicks off the May-long weekend with a spring craft market. With a lot of crafts and homemade goods made by local vendors, there will be something for everybody. Visit watsonsmill.com for more information. The Canada exhibition highlights the work of renowned photographer Rip Hopkins. Over the course of a year, Hopkins made multiple visits to Canada, connecting with and photographing a variety of people. Visit the Ottawa Art Gallery website for more information.
Hi, I'm Kyle Waddell and I'm a co-op student here at Rogers TV. I really enjoyed this co-op placement because all the people you got to meet, they're so welcoming, as well as the new experiences such as covering 67's games or being a reporter for High School Sports Zone. It's all a big new experience. I want to be a reporter because with High School Sports Zone, I got to learn how to properly write reports and cover games properly. I would definitely recommend this program at Rogers TV.
Drop Dead Gorgeous. Oh my God, you've got the look.
Celebrate Ottawa is a collection of stories for, by, and about the people, places, and rich history that make Ottawa such a vibrant place to call home. Tune in Sunday evenings at 7:30.
Welcome back to the Power Lunch on 1310 News.
Thank you for joining us.
Now, a fresh take on what's trending in the news.
It's time for our multiple choice questions on the Power Lunch on 1310 News. Our guest today, Matt Scoff, president of the Ottawa Police Association, and Sherilyn Starkey, president of Thornley Fallis. Question number 1. How is this Harjit Sajjan controversy likely to play out? Is it A, he will end up resigning or being removed from cabinet? B, he will be shuffled to a different portfolio in a couple of months? Or C, he will ride it out and keep his job?
I think it's B. I think he's going to get moved out in a shuffle. He's been a great minister so far until this time. He has a lot of respect, but can he remain, the head of our military and our armed forces, given that he's had this reputational hiccup, shall we call it? So, I think that I don't think that they'll jettison him. I think that they'll move him to a different portfolio, maybe a bit of a demotion. But they'll move him around.
So you'll all know that I did some research on this one, and I'm going with this is a far cry from the King Bing affair of 1925. Look it up; it's pretty cool. This is political puffery. This is Al Gore invented the internet. This is B. He will be eventually just shuffled from his portfolio.
Yeah. But I imagine your members could relate very much to the reaction that members of the Canadian Armed Forces would have about what he said he did and in fact did not do, right?
And what he just said, whether he did it or not, should he have said it anyways, given if that was his role.
Right.
And given what may have or may not have occurred. I mean, when you're doing project planning, if you're that heavily involved in a military operation, and yes, absolutely, we can draw relations in a police operation, should it have even been discussed?
Yeah. And is that the sort of thing you brag about, even if it's true, right? You normally, especially if you're in a leadership role, you're giving credit to other people. You're not claiming credit, even if you deserve it.
You know what? If you have very good self-esteem and your ego's in check, there's no necessity to brag about it. You've already been elected and put as the minister of this portfolio. I think you can leave it there.
I'd wager he wouldn't have said it at home, but he said it abroad, and maybe thought that he was in a little bit more safe territory on that.
Oh, it's interesting. Good point.
What best describes your view of downtown LRT construction? Is it A, it's a necessary evil to get a world-class transit system? B, I was expecting the disruption to be over in time for Canada's 150th birthday celebrations? Or C, I'm just totally frustrated and disappointed by the chaos and road closures?
So what is my view of the LRT?
Yeah.
I'd say about 80 feet because my office is right above it. But I spent a lot of time living in London, England, and in Washington, D.C. And, you know, in both those cities, their public transit system is so central to not only to business and commerce and transportation, but to their cultures. And I couldn't have survived in either of those cities without having an efficient ground transportation network like that. And if Ottawa is going to continue to grow, and it is, we need to have a world-class transit system.
So A.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This is a legacy piece. This is going to move the entire city of Ottawa. It can't be rushed for a party or for a legacy. This is A. It's a necessary evil.
But do you think we should back away from, I think we talked about this already a little bit, but I just feel like we should back away from the idea that we've got to meet some deadline, because it is a project that is going to be here for 50, 60, 70 years. If it's a few months late, that's not the end of the world.
Totally agree.
Yeah, I remember when Andrew Hayden was so proud that the Transitway was completed on time and on budget. It's all he talked about for years.
Yeah.
But,
it's a thing,
yeah.
right? And when you've made that promise, you want to stick to it.
That's right.
But ultimately, you know, I think people understand. Look, it's one thing if it's over budget by 1%, as opposed to being over budget by 20, 30, 40, 50%, like the big dig in Boston. It's one thing if it's a few months late. It's another thing if it's 2 years late. You know, I think there's an order of magnitude. There's a margin of error people, I think, can respect.
There's always going to be exigent circumstances in a project of this magnitude. And again, what we'll end up with is the priority to me is that the magnitude of this is so big. It'll have such a great impact on the city. We can't rush it. And at the end of the day, I think this will be within the percentages that you're describing. And barring another disaster, and we can all knock on wood that doesn't occur, this is, again, goes back to the necessary evil.
Mm-hmm. Would you rather, A, Donald Trump had a good relationship with Vladimir Putin, B, Donald Trump had a bad relationship with Vladimir Putin, or C, Donald Trump had no relationship with Vladimir Putin?